1:30 in the morning.
So, welcome to Taronga Zoo, and thank you for coming along to our free flight bird show. What we're going to do is bring out some magnificent birds, and when those birds come out, I'm going to tell you what their names are, what kind of birds they are, we'll tell you what kind of food they eat, and we'll show you the tools that they were born with that enable them to get by in the wild. Now, we've got over 800 different kinds of birds, and the first bird that we're going to bring out, some of you might be familiar with. It's an owl. Now, the thing with owls is, most people think that owls only hunt at night. Well, we've got a daytime hunting owl in Australia. In fact, some owls actually like to hunt during the day. And this little guy's name's Herbie, and he's going to fly really close to the tops of your heads, so you can get a very close look at one of our beautiful birds. Now, the reason that he hunts during the day, or in the early morning and the late afternoon mostly, is because that's when his most favourite food just happens to be around. Now, he's a very powerful and stocky bird, and that enables him... Oops, there you go, very, very close look. You see, you thought you'd sit up the back so you could be safe. You weren't safe at all. So, like I said, he likes to hunt other birds, birds as large as himself. So, kookaburras and tawny frogmouths, and even some parrots like the two you would have seen at the beginning of the show. Sulphur-crested cockatoos are even on the menu. Now, he's called a barking owl, and the reason he's called a barking owl is because he can make a sound just like a dog. Not the little chirpy noise, but the little woof woof call. And in fact, some people have been fooled when they've been camping. They thought they've heard a dog sitting in a tree. Well, we know that dogs don't normally climb trees, so if you are out there camping and you think you hear a dog in the tree, well, have a look and you might actually see one of these little guys. Now, as Katharina walks our owl around the front, have a look at how large his eyes are. They're very, very large, and in comparison to the size of our head, if our eyes were that large, well, they'd be as large as softballs. Now, because they're so large, well, he can't move them up or down, or side to side, but what he can do is turn his head around, not all the way around, but 3/4 of the way. Now, I said that he hunts other birds, but he also eats mammals like, well, small possums, maybe rabbits, mice, and what else? Rats. That's exactly right. Now, I'll tell you a bit of a secret. When they set the show up down here, they decided to get owls because, well, we used to have a bit of a rat plague. But since we've had the owls in the show, well, we haven't seen a single rat or mouse in the whole zoo. They've done such a fabulous job, and so have you. Thanks very much, Kat. Now, because that particular owl hunts during the day, doesn't mean all owls do. Like I said, a lot of people think that they only hunt at night. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to bring out an owl that does hunt at night. Now, a lot of you kids might actually know what this owl is. If you've seen Harry Potter, well, you might have even seen one. It's a barn owl. Now, they're not as stocky or as powerful, and they don't need to be, because to catch their food, they rely on their hearing. Now, on this tape recorder here, I've got the sounds of some of their most favourite food. It's actually the sounds of some frogs that we recorded. And you can hear this because I'm playing it through the speakers on each side of the stage. But I'm not going to be so kind to our owl. I'm actually going to hide it. So he has to use his hearing to find it. But to prove to you that we don't hide it in the same spot every single show, and we haven't trained him to fly to a certain spot, I'll get you to pick where I hide it. Behind the big rock there or the little rock there? Which one? The little one? Great. So what I'm going to do, like I said, I'm going to hide it behind this rock. We'll press play. We'll stick a little piece of food on there for our owl to catch. And he'll have to use his hearing to try and find it. Now, because he's a barn owl, where do you think he might live? In a barn, exactly right. But he also likes to live in hollow logs, and there's a hollow log up behind your head. And our barn owl's going to come down and join us. Got it, good shot. Now, if you were watching closely, you would have seen that, well, he didn't decide which way to go until halfway down. And that's because last show the person picked the big rock, so he actually has to use that hearing to find his food. Now his hearing is exceptionally good, so good in fact he doesn't even need to see his food to catch it. He can catch it in 100% darkness, but he doesn't have big pieces of skin on each side of his face to funnel that sound in. What he does have is that beautiful heart-shaped face that acts like a giant ear right in the middle of his face. Now another fascinating thing about owls is they can fly completely silently. They've got very, very soft feathers, and at the edge of each feather there's a little frayed edge. And what that frayed edge does is it breaks up the air as it flows over his wings, so it creates absolutely no noise. So not only can he catch his food in 100% darkness, but he can also sneak up on it without it even knowing that he's coming. You want to show everyone how you can fly silently? There he goes, not a sound. So I said we had around 800 species of bird, and they're not all owls, quite obviously. They get by in lots of different ways. Now, birds like owls like to eat meat, but not all birds do. Some, in fact, like to eat lots of other things. Now we've got a bird in Australia called a brolga. Our brolga's up there, he's about to fly over your heads. This is Billy, and he's an omnivore. That means he eats both meat and also plants. Now you can see that he's got a very, very long beak. Well, he doesn't use that beak to stab his food, he actually uses it to probe in the long reeds and in the dirt. He'd be looking for things like witchetty grubs, worms, caterpillars. You also might notice that Billy here's got a long set of legs, and that's because, well, he's a wetlands type bird. He likes to live around the water, and in the water he'd be looking for things like, well, in the water he'd be looking for things like fish and frogs, tadpoles, and even the roots of some of those plants around the wetlands areas that he lives in. Now he's a rather large bird. He's one of our largest flying birds, in fact. You might also notice that he's got a very, very red head. Well, that red head in brolgas is a sign of maturity. He's about 4 or 5 years of age, and out there in the wild, well, that red head would be telling all the other girls that he's out there looking for a boyfriend. Now another thing you might notice is his toes. He's got very, very long and widely splayed apart toes. Now those toes enable him to go into that water, and they enable him not to sink. It increases the surface area of his foot, and in fact if he had feet like ours, or when he waded around, he'd be pretty much up to his waist. His feathers would be very, very wet, and it would be impossible for a bird that large to fly with wet feathers. So you've seen a bird with large eyes, a very powerful owl. You've seen a barn owl that can fly completely silently. It's got very, very good hearing. And you've seen a bird like Bill. It's got long legs and a very long beak. But if you're not born with tools that enable you to get by, you have to rely on your intelligence. Now, we've got some beautiful parrots in Australia, and we've got one that's going to come out right now and show us how smart some of our Australian parrots really can be. Now this little guy is called a galah. His name's Jasper. And like I said, galahs are very, very smart. They're so smart, in fact, they worked out how to undo the stitching on the grain sacks that farmers used to leave out full of grain. It was a very easy way to get some food. They just pick at the stitching till all the grain fell out. They'd fly on down and get a very free and easy meal. But I'm not going to show you how smart he is using a Hessian grain sack because I just don't have one. But if there's an adult out there that wants to see how smart he is, I need to see one with a $1 coin. So the first adult that wants to see how smart our galah is, I need to see the coin. I need to see the coin. You got a coin? Well, what I need you to do, it's going to be a little bit awkward, is to stand up where you are and hold that $1 coin between your thumb and your forefinger, just like that. Straighten your arm out, and we'll get Jasper to fly on over there. The smart bird that he is, he'll grab that coin, he'll bring it back to someone he trusts, stick it somewhere nice and safe. You can have a seat. Okay, so there's one lady who's not going to forget how smart our parrots really are. But I want everyone to remember, and I want to make sure that you're not going to forget. So we're going to do that again. But to be sure that you're going to remember, maybe someone over here can play. I need a $50 or $100 note. Come on, he's a pretty smart guy, and he knows that if he can get $50, well, he doesn't have to come out here for 50 more days. Well, galahs don't steal coins in the wild, do they? No, that's a very good thing, otherwise we'd all be broke. They don't steal money out there in the wild because they really don't need it. And the truth is, they don't need it here at the bird show either. We really only train honest birds, so I am going to return that coin to you if you'd like to stand up where you are and hold your palm flat to the sky. Honest birds. He wants another one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give him that coin and he'll put it right back. Right back where he found it. Honest birds, Jasper. How about we try it from over here? Off you go. There we go. Like I said, very honest. Good boy. Yay! So there you go, not a natural behaviour, but it is one very fun way to show you how smart some of our parrots really can be. You've done a wonderful job, got there in the end, you can go inside. And koalas have done very well for themselves because, well, we've provided them with food in the form of our crops and water in the forms of our dams, but it's not the same for all the birds that we have. Some of them aren't doing quite so well at all. Now, our second largest bird of prey is called a white-bellied sea eagle. Now, she's called a white-bellied sea eagle because, well, she's got a white belly, and she's called a sea eagle because she loves to live around water. Water-like. The beautiful harbour here, but not only that, our rivers, lakes, oceans, and even dams. Now, the reason she likes to live around water is because she likes to eat fish. Not only possums and rabbits and reptiles like lizards and snakes, there she is right there, but fish is one of her most favourite foods. Now, because fish is one of her most favourite foods, it's one of the reasons that she's here to join us. She's used to be a wild bird. When she was around 1 year of age, she was flying around free as a bird. But the thing is, well, she saw a piece of food that was laying on the ground. It was a temptation that was too impossible for her to resist. So she flew on down to grab that food. Unfortunately, that food was actually a bait in a steel-jawed rabbit trap. Now, it's that rabbit trap snapped shut around her right foot, which is the foot closest to Cat. And if you have a very close look, you'll notice that she's missing a couple of toes because of that. Now, the most important toe for Minka is one of her rear toes. She needs that toe to be able to scoop those fish out of the water. But unfortunately, without the use of that toe, well, it'd be impossible for her to survive out there in the wild. But she's down here at the bird show so that we can show you a very beautiful bird, and also as a very good example of why steel-jawed rabbit traps are no longer legal in our country. Well, she's done a wonderful job, and so have you. Thanks very much again, Sabrina. Now, birds like Minka are found all around our very beautiful country. In fact, there's 2 pairs of white-bellied sea eagles breeding right here in Sydney Harbour. Now, people are often surprised when we tell them that because, well, we walk around with our hands in our pockets and our eyes on the pavement. So it's always important to remember that whether you're in the bush or in a park or even if you're in your own backyard, make sure you look up, then you might see some very spectacular birds. Well, on behalf of the staff and myself, and especially the birds, I'd like to thank you for coming. I'm going to stay down here for a little while to answer any of your questions if you have any. But if you don't, please enjoy the rest of your day at the zoo. Thank you very much.